The night began as a celebration, a grand, glittering affair in the ballroom of one of the city's most elegant hotels. It was her birthday, and she had spent weeks planning every detail. From the cascading floral arrangements to the live jazz band playing softly in the corner, I arrived early, hoping to surprise her with a small gift I knew she'd love. The first 30 minutes were perfect. Laughter, champagne, smiles that could light up the entire room. I thought everything was exactly as it should be. Then she arrived, dressed in a gown that turned heads the moment she stepped through the door. She smiled at the crowd, waved, and then, without even glancing at me, launched herself into her social circle. Her friends cheered, cameras flashed, and for a moment I felt invisible. I tried to join the laughter, to mingle, to appear part of the night she'd created, but I could sense tension building, like a storm forming behind the glittering chandeliers. It started with a small, harmless comment. Someone complimented me on my work, and I replied with a modest joke. Her friends laughed. She frowned, a small, almost imperceptible twitch of her lips. I thought she was joking. I was wrong. By the time the speeches began, I realized she had something else planned. Something personal, targeted, and completely humiliating. The toast came, and everyone gathered around the podium. She raised her glass, smiled at the crowd, and then suddenly pointed at me. "And then there's him," she said loudly, her voice cutting through the music. "Always so serious, so perfect. Always trying to act like he's better than everyone here." Laughter rippled through the room, but it wasn't playful. It was cruel. I felt my stomach tighten, my hands turn clammy. Before I could respond, she stepped closer, her eyes shining with mockery. "And let's be honest," she continued, leaning toward me so everyone could hear. "Sometimes he really deserves a wake-up call." Then, without hesitation, her hand struck my cheek. A sharp, unexpected slap in front of 200 stunned guests. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. My ears rang, and for a split second, I couldn't breathe. Time slowed. Everyone froze. Some stared in shock, others whispered. Heat rushed to my face, a mix of humiliation, rage, and disbelief. But I didn't speak. I didn't shout. I didn't even flinch. I simply stood there, took a deep breath, and carefully measured my next move. I knew in that moment that whatever we had, whatever love once existed, was over. The trust, respect, and intimacy that defined our relationship had shattered in a single humiliating motion. I realized then that the only way to reclaim my dignity was to walk away. Without a word, I excused myself politely to the nearest staff member, retrieved my coat, and walked calmly to the car. Every step felt heavier than the last, yet strangely freeing. Inside the ballroom, the crowd continued its murmurs, oblivious to the storm growing behind my silence. I drove to a quiet motel on the outskirts of town. I didn't call a friend. I didn't cause a scene. I unpacked my essentials, left my keys and her small belongings on the counter at home, and decided that night would mark the end of everything we had shared. The next morning, I didn't wake her with apologies or explanations. I didn't answer her frantic calls or texts. Instead, I packed the rest of my things, loaded them into my car, and drove toward a new city, toward a new life. Every mile carried me farther from her cruelty and closer to freedom. Weeks later, mutual friends messaged asking if I was okay, if I would forgive her, if we had reconciled. I didn't respond. Their words didn't matter. I had already reclaimed my peace. The only sound that mattered was the engine of my car carrying me farther from the memory of that night. She eventually tried to reach me. A voicemail, a text, even a vague email apologizing for her behavior. I listened to none of it. Her apology, like her slap, was too late. I didn't need closure. I needed distance. And I gave myself that, in the most complete way possible. Sometimes the most powerful statements aren't made with words. They're made in silence, in action, in walking away when everyone expects you to stay. And that night, in the quiet aftermath of her betrayal, my silence spoke louder than anything I could have said. When she finally realized I wasn't coming back, the look on her face, disbelief, panic, regret, was all the confirmation I needed. I left her staring at an empty doorway, and for the first time, she understood she had lost me forever. Freedom is not loud, it isn't vindictive, it is quiet, patient, and absolute. And that night, as I drove away from the life I once knew, I felt more alive than I had in,